Okay guys, so today is going to be a short video. This is about Mulcharmy Fuwaross, which is recently announced coming in Rage of the Abyss. So that's in a few weeks for the OCG and I think October for the TCG. Now, if you're new to this channel, I try to, instead of giving more generic reviews or responses to like Yu-Gi-Oh news, I try to give a more specific analysis, and right now I'm talking about White Forest. So I want to talk about the utility of this card in White Forest specifically and how we might be able to abuse this card. If you don't know what this card does, this is the actual Maxi at home, not Purulia, which is coming in Infinite Forbidden, so it's basically out already. Purulia is a lot worse than this card because Purulia draws if your opponent summons from the hand. And in the current Snake Eyes meta, summoning from the hand is basically a guarantee if you're playing Snake Eyes. So you can use the Purulia in the draw phase or whenever, and you'll get the draw when your opponent normal summons a monster, and you'll also get a draw when they special summon like the Poplar from hand. So you know that it will not only trade for itself in card advantage, but it'll also give you an extra draw, and then you may get other draws on top of it. But this card has way more coverage. So this says, if you control no cards, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the deck and or extra deck, immediately draw one card. So this is basically every single monster, or every single deck, in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Once during the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6, you must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck so the number in your hand equals the number your opponent controls plus 6. And you can only activate one other Mulcharmy monster effect the turn you activate this effect. So this card, just to be clear, is not once per turn. If you draw two of these, you can activate both of them. Or if you draw this and a Purulia, you can activate both of them, and the draws will stack. Now, the, in air quotes, drawback from the second effect here is not really a drawback because the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6 is a lot of cards. Even if your opponent tries to stop special summoning, you've basically achieved your, like, the impact of this card is already successful. And so there's no reason really not to play this card, except that the condition is if you control no cards. So the only reason that every single deck that exists in Yu-Gi-Oh! Would not be main decking this card is because it would be a brick going first, but some decks may still play it because it is so powerful going second. However, in our deck, this is different. So let's say that we go first, and I am going to do an extremely basic White Woods combo that is basically just laddering into Diabel. So I'm going to add some cards here and go into the ladder. It doesn't really matter how I do this. So let's normal summon the Asteria, and Asteria will send the tank, and we'll special summon, let's say, the Sylvie. And whatever, we'll just trigger these effects. I'll add the woes here, and here we will go into the Arciela with these cards, and Arciela will send whatever, and it will add, let's just say we're adding a Veiler. Then we're going to activate the triggers. So all this is unnecessary, you know, like we really are just going into the Diabel here to show you what this combo does. Okay, so now we have the Diabel on field. And let's forget whatever else we could go into these because I've covered a lot of this stuff in my other combo videos, and let's just pass turn. So as we understand, we can't actually use the Fuwaross because you have to control no cards. So when our opponent activates a card and we can respond with Diabel, we will activate Diabel, and we will send whatever, it doesn't matter, to special summon Zapper Shrimp. Now, Zapper Shrimp is one of the, I think it's a TCG exclusive, it's one of the new cards in Infinite Forbidden. So this is basically Formula Synchron with an additional effect. So this says, if this card is special summoned, you can send one other card from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one spell/trap your opponent controls, destroy it. And that's once per turn. Now, quick note here, what's interesting about this for our deck is that this just says send a card from your hand or field to the grave. So that means you technically can send like a toy card or whatever and get a trigger there. Also, that is cost, which means if you were to send a Whitewoods card like Tails or Woes, then you would be able to trigger it to reset it. But that's not what we're going to be doing right now. We're not going to be using that trigger. What I want to show is because this card is a fish tuner, we can special summon Goatee of the Deep Beyond. Now, this card, if you haven't seen it before, it requires a Fish Tuner. Okay, so not only would you be playing Zapper Shrimp over Formula Synchron anyhow, because the optional effect to destroy a spell or trap is just a bonus. You don't have to use it, but it's strictly superior to Formula Synchron because you're never getting to draw off a formula. But because this requires a Fish Tuner, this says the original attack of this card becomes 500 by the number of banished monsters. So you can see that it has a question mark here. If this card is synchro summoned during your opponent's turn, you can banish all cards on the field. So it doesn't care where they are, whose side of the field they're on. You banish all cards on the field. During the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished from the monster zone, you can special summon this banished card. So the cool thing about this is normally when you're playing, your opponent is interacting with you, right? So like ideally, you go through some other resources, and if you have drawn Fuwaross, you either would decide to go this route, especially if you are on a hand trap build, because you could be drawing into hand traps, or you already have hand traps in your hand. So it's not like you're leaving your field completely empty. Or maybe you wait to see like, okay, does your opponent play through the other stuff that you have on the field first? Like, let's say you made an Apo and they like talents to take it or something like that, whatever it is that you're doing, and you're like, okay, I don't really have many more interactions left on field, but I do have a Fuwaross in hand. And maybe also I have hand traps, or I want to draw into hand traps. So you use the Goatee and you banish all cards. And now, as you can see, we can actually activate the Mulcharmy Fuwaross. Now, because we're just playing against the basic AI here, they're not actually going to do anything that will allow us to resolve that. But when we go back to our turn, I said, so during the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished, you can special summon this. So this is optional. So if you choose not to do it, it will not come back to your field. And that's why me clicking no resulted in that not coming back to the field. And also, when it does come back to the field, you remember that the original attack becomes 500 times the number of banished monsters. So here we would be 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So 500 by 4. So that could be relevant, whether you could use that as like a monster to help you OTK or whatever, and then you would have whatever cards in hand. So in our case, we have 2 hand traps, and we have basically full combo, because the once you have Toy Box, the Toy Soldier searches your engine, because you can get a Sylvie directly from your deck. So that shows why Mulcharmy Fuwaross is a little bit different for us, because you have the option to go into Goatee of the Deep Beyond. Now, I'm not saying that you must do this and that this is the correct way to play the deck, but because this card is so powerful and basically everyone is going to have to own it in their side deck, it is useful to at least have that option, especially if you're already going to be playing a build that runs Zapper Shrimp. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any suggestions or you have any other ideas in mind for how to play this card or any other tech. And remember that you can join the Discord if you want, and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Thanks for watching.